It's just turned noon in Central Time, so we'll get started because we have much to cover. Thank you, everyone who's attending. I see that we have more than 25 CF Care Team members participating. So let's get started.
We'd like to thank the CF Roundtable for organizing this webcast. And many of you already subscribe, but if you don't, you can subscribe by going to cfroundtable.com and also letting your patients know about the CF Roundtable. The CF Roundtable has been serving adults with CF for more than 30 years. That it produces a quarterly publication which is written by adults for adults with CF. A lot of parents, I think, of younger kids subscribe now as well to kind of hear about how adults are facing CF challenges and also, living very wonderful lives. So CF Roundtable now offers several scholarships for college. One based on arts, one based for people interested in business, and one for healthcare, people pursuing healthcare careers, and then 6 scholarships for people just for general education. So there's a lot of scholarship money available, and it's a great way for your patients to apply for scholarships. And every year, I think about 20 scholarships are given out. In addition, the CF Roundtable presents educational webinars like this one, and we're very grateful for all they do.
So today we're going to have the two speakers are myself and Beth Suffian. For those of you who have not met Beth, she's a partner in the law firm of Suffian and Passamano in Houston, Texas, and she directs the CF Legal Information Hotline as well as the CF Social Security Project. Of course, she's been practicing law for 35 years, and she doesn't mind me telling you that she's 59 years old and she has cystic fibrosis herself.
Jim Passamano is our other speaker. He is my law partner, and he's a former senior trial attorney for the U.S. EEOC and a former federal judicial clerk. He has also been practicing law for 35 years and representing people with cystic fibrosis around the country for 31 years. So the Cystic Fibrosis Legal Information Hotline was established in 1998, and 2023 was its 25th anniversary. So the CF Legal Information Hotline allows us to provide free and confidential information on the laws that protect people with CF. So people with CF can call, family members can call, and members of the CF team can also call. The hotline is operated by Suffian and Passamano, but we are funded by the CF Foundation, but we're not employees of the CF Foundation. And every year we have close to 10,000 calls to the hotline. And the hotline focuses on 4 different areas: Social Security, health insurance, employment rights, and education rights. And you can have your patients contact us directly by email to set up a time to talk to us. And in addition, there's a lot of social workers right now or other care team members that want to either be on the phone with the patient, which is fine if that's what the patient agrees to. And also sometimes social workers are having the call with the patient when the patient is at clinic, if they're afraid it might be hard for the patient to contact us on their own. So there's all types of ways to make sure that your patients and families are able to access the information we can provide.
In addition to the hotline, we also operate the CF Social Security Project. And this is slightly different because it provides actual attorney representation to people with CF when they're applying for Social Security benefits, or if they already have benefits and they are undergoing a continuing disability review. So the CF Social Security project provides services to individuals more than once, so they can apply and we can help them later if they are being reviewed. And of course, Suffian and Passamano operate the project, but the project is funded by the CF Foundation, for which we're most grateful. And if you need to contact the hotline, you can contact by email or by telephone. Of course, it's best to schedule a time by email, but of course, that is our phone number as well. Before we begin, I just want to point out to everyone that the information we're about to give in this presentation is intended only for information, and it's not intended to be representation or intended to be legal advice in the specific circumstances. If you need legal advice, you should consult with a qualified attorney, or you can call the hotline or the CF SSP, and we can talk about the unique situation. But this program is for informational purposes only.
And we do want to let you know that we are available to speak on topics of legal significance at education days. We do that by Zoom or, remotely. And then also, if you ever wanted to have a webinar for members of your CF team, we do that also. And there is no charge for a presentation. So we were very excited when CF Roundtable asked us to present a webinar for CF care teams, because we have seen an increase in calls to the CF Legal Information Hotline from patients who don't know about the hotline, and more importantly, don't know that there is a CF Social Security project that can assist people with either an application for benefits or with paperwork related to a continuing disability review. What we see is that when people try to do an application themselves, there's a very high number of denials. And when people try to do continuing disability reviews themselves, even a 1 or 2 page continuing disability review, those people are getting terminated in large numbers. Once people have their benefits terminated, it may not be possible to reinstate, and reinstatement could take up to 1 or 2 years. So it's very important to make sure your patients know ahead of time that there is help with Social Security matters at no charge.
Yeah, so before we get to the substance of it, we thought it would be important to dispel some misbeliefs. And these things come up all the time in calls. For example, people with CF or their family members will say, cystic fibrosis is an automatic basis for disability benefits, so I don't need to pay attention to the disability review paperwork. That's not correct. CF is not an automatic basis for approval. We often hear from people that say, oh no, I have benefits, and once I receive benefits, I have benefits for life. Now, I wish that were true, but unfortunately it's not. Once you have to receive benefits, you must continue to be eligible. And once you are no longer eligible, the benefit ends. Some people tell us, well, I received benefits as a child, so I will automatically receive benefits as an adult. Unfortunately, that's not true either. And Beth will go over the details, but there's an 18-year-old review for every person who received benefits as a child when they become an adult, to determine whether their benefits will continue. Another thing that we've heard, particularly in states that have not expanded their state Medicaid program for low-income adults, people say, well, I must have the benefit because without the benefit, I would have no access to health coverage. Well, that is an unfortunate situation, but that is not a criteria for continuation of benefit. Benefits may be discontinued even if there is no other option for health coverage.
So one of the things that we're seeing that has changed in terms of Social Security assessing either eligibility to receive benefits initially or to stay on benefits during a continuing disability review is that Social Security is placing much more importance on whether the person with CF is prevented from engaging in substantial gainful activity because of their daily limitations. And the same thing is true for children who are either applying for Social Security or have a Social Security review. And that is where Social Security really wants to understand the daily activities of the child to see if those daily activities lead Social Security to believe the child does not have limitations in engaging in age-appropriate activities. So we're going to start, we decided to kind of switch the order of the speech to talk first about continuing disability reviews, because this is, these are the calls that cause us the most tears, I guess you could say, cause the people on the phone tears and us as well. And that is because often people are eligible, but when they do the continuing disability review paperwork themselves, they lose the benefit and it becomes very difficult to get the benefit back. So if we can help people with the initial continuing disability review paperwork, we have overwhelming success on doing so. It is important to know that under the Social Security regulations, those have changed, and now disability reviews are supposed to be done at least every 3 to 5 years. Sometimes if people are working part-time, they're getting a review every year. And sometimes when people move and change their address, the computer is sending an automatic disability review. So a lot of people with CF around the country are getting reviews, and often it looks like the review will be very easy. It's 1 to 2 pages, but one answer to one question can lead to someone losing their benefits and the health insurance they receive because they are eligible for Social Security. So Social Security is usually going to learn of health improvement during the continuing disability review. And it's very important. We have a lot of people saying, because I'm taking a certain medication, I think I lost my benefits. And that is not the reason the person is losing the benefit. So being on a certain medication does not result in loss of benefit, but having significant health improvement could lead to losing the benefit, and also providing answers on the form. Some of the questions are not so clear to the person with the disability, and so often the answers on the form are resulting in the person losing their benefit, which also means they lose their health coverage, which of course we don't want, and we know you don't want that either. So the other type of review is called an 18-year-old review. Every child who is on SSI benefits, when they reach age 18, Social Security must review their eligibility. Nationally, for all children who get an 18-year-old review, at least half of them lose their benefit. A lot of times, as Jim said, families receive the 18-year-old review, but they think it's not a big deal because they think the child is on benefits for life. So it is good to remind families before the child turns 18 that they will be getting an 18-year-old review, and there is assistance at no cost from the CF Social Security Project to help with that paperwork. So that brings us to kind of our new mantra. If you've talked to us recently, and I see some familiar, wonderful names of CF team members, we are seeing that when the CF Center at every visit ask the patients if they've received correspondence from Social Security, because often they're not telling you that they've received it. And then also to ahead of time inform them that if they receive paperwork from Social Security, it is very important that they could lose their benefits if they don't get help, and that the CF Foundation is funding legal assistance, and the patient or the family, they never have to pay anything. So we're finding that when we have some centers that have started doing this the past year, almost all of their patients are coming to us to help with their paperwork when they get a review, and we're keeping all of them on benefits. So it is really helpful to just put that on your list of things you talk about when a patient or a family is in your office, so that ahead of time they know that there is help, instead of waiting until they've lost their benefit, they've lost their health insurance, and then they finally tell you, and then they finally come to us. And at that point, we can try to get them back on benefits, but it's a 1 to 2 year, I hate to say battle, but battle. And often
it's a wait. They have to wait time.
Right. It's a very long time to wait. And it's a low likelihood they can get back on.
So those are the reviews, and we wanted to stress that up front, is because we see that that's where many of the patients with CF they have benefits, they're eligible for benefits, but they're nevertheless losing it because they have they didn't receive the assistance that was available. So let's take a look at let's back up broader and look at what are the Social Security benefits that might be available to someone with CF. And there's really 3 different types. First, there's Social Security disability insurance. Now, if you're in a pediatric clinic, this SSDI is probably not going to be available, because SSDI is for workers and most children aren't workers. The next one is Supplemental Security Income, SSI. Now, this is available for both children and for adults. So if you're in a pediatric center, SSI is likely, and even for the adults as well. And then the third, and this is one that is the least common, is a survivor's benefit. Excuse me, and that's a benefit for children of a deceased, disabled, or retired parent who has paid into the Social Security system.
We are seeing that more people with CF are living longer and are having parents who pass away. So often Social Security doesn't indicate why a person's benefit has changed, but it is often because the parent has passed away. And that is something we're seeing many more cases like that than ever before.
Yes, so the survivor benefit has become more relevant for exactly that purpose, because people with CF are living longer, and also their parents are dying while the person with CF is still living. So now survivor benefit has an increased relevance to people living with CF. All right, so let's take a quick look. Let's look at each of these 3 closely so we can understand how they're different. Because they have some similarities, but their differences are the thing to focus on. So SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. This benefit program is intended to be available to people who have worked, have been in the labor force. So you can see that's mostly going to be adults or people over the age of 18. So they have to have a minimum participation in the labor force. During that time of participation, they have contributed the minimum requisite amount to the Social Security system, and they meet the medical requirements. So you can think of this as being 2 criteria: labor force participation and meeting the medical requirement. And remember, the medical requirement is to determine whether the person is because of CF, incapable of performing substantial gainful activity. Now, substantial gainful activity. What does that mean? Essentially, it means working. But remember that for Social Security, we think it's full-time work, but full-time for Social Security is 20 or more hours in a week. So if a person is working 20 or more hours in a week, they are not going to be considered disabled by Social Security, regardless of how severe their symptoms are, because Social Security is looking as to whether the person can work, and severe symptoms raise the presumption that they can't work, but if they in fact are working, that's the best evidence that they can work. So they're going to look at substantial gainful activity, and that's not only the number of hours they work during a week, it's also the amount of their monthly earnings. So the earning limit in this year, 2024, is $1,550. So if you're earning more than that in a month, or if a patient is earning more than that in a month, that's substantial gainful activity. If they're earning less than that, that's going to be regarded as insubstantial.
And I think it's just very important that a lot of adults with CF tell us that it's only the earnings that Social Security looks at, and they don't look at the hours, but they do look at the hours.
That's right. They look at both.
They look at both, and they can see it when the employer reports earnings. They can see both hours and monthly earnings.
Yes.
And often Social Security takes maybe 12 months to see that someone has worked over the allowable. And that is when your patient gets an overpayment notice, because in the month they worked over the allowable, any months after, they were not entitled to benefits. So lots of people are getting overpayment notices with large numbers on them. And that's because sometimes it's 2 or 3 years, because 3 years ago, the person worked 1 month over the allowable, and Social Security has finally seen it. So they owe 3 years of money back to Social Security, and that usually results in the termination of the benefit.
Yes, so the thing to focus on here is that these are the eligibility requirements. So if the patient is working over 20 hours in a week, they're no longer eligible. And if you're not eligible, you don't get a benefit. So, and Beth is absolutely right, and this causes a lot of confusion, that there's a lag time. Social Security usually doesn't find out that the person is working over the hour limit or earning over the income limit until many months later. From the viewpoint of the person with CF on benefits, they say, "Hey, I worked over 20 hours this week. Nothing happened. Nothing happened the next month or the month after that." Well, it's not because it's not that it's fine and nothing is going to happen. It's just that it will take time for the termination notice to come, and a termination notice is bad, but it's even worse if it's accompanied with an overpayment notice. So for your patients who are, keep in mind, they may be working under 20 hours a week, but if they have a high wage, they may be over the $1,550 per month. Right. And that can be a basis for the termination.
And that's $1,550 before taxes are taken out of the check.
Yes, it's based on earnings, and earnings are gross earnings, not take-home pay, gross earnings, what the person is actually paid. Now, if the patient is eventually approved for SSDI, the benefits are a monthly cash benefit. But remember, there's a 5-month waiting period after the date of disability, and that's the date determined by Social Security. After the date that Social Security determines that they're eligible, you have to wait 5 months before any benefit is paid. Now, the healthcare benefit that comes with SSDI is Medicare, not Medicaid, Medicare. And Medicare doesn't begin until 29 months after the date of disability. So this is an important detail. Many people are expecting the insurance to turn on right away for Medicare. It doesn't. There's a long waiting period, 24 months after the first income payment is made.
And the date of disability is for an adult, the last day the adult worked, making more than $1,550 and more than 20 hours. So date of disability for an adult is not going to be date of birth. And that is often a big reason why benefits are not approved when people handle an application themselves, is they say, well, I've had CF since I was born, so my date of disability is my date of birth. But if they worked at any time from date of birth to the date of the application, then the application is denied because date of birth is not the correct date of disability.
Yes, the thing to keep in mind here is that diagnosis or date of diagnosis is a concept that's entirely different from date of disability. For Social Security, disability is inextricably linked to work. Diagnosis is something entirely different.
Yeah, I mean, we just for a quick example is someone who came to us about 3 months ago. He had applied every year for the past 5 years and he had gotten denied. And he was told by his CF center, well, you should be getting approved because your PFT is 35. And so he would apply again. And unfortunately, no one told him that he could contact us. He finally contacted us. And we said, well, what date of disability have you been giving? And he said, date of birth. So we filed a new application with the correct date of disability because he had worked for 3 years, like 2018 to 2021. So with the new date of disability and good evidence about his daily limitations and medical records, we got him approved in 2 months, which is very quick. Most cases are taking 8 to 12 months, but it's a really good example of when people try to do it themselves, even if they have a low PFT and very significant limitations, if they don't know what information is important and also what is date of disability, what date should that be, then, I mean, this person could have had benefits 5 years ago. So I think that's just an aside of what happens when people try to do it themselves, even if they have a very low FEV1. All right, so now we're going to talk about SSI. This is the other disability, one of the other disability programs. And SSI for a child who is under 18, the parent's household income assets are counted. And the parents have to have low work income monthly. And it depends on how many people are in the household. And then they have to have low assets. So the asset limit for an individual is 2,000 at any given time and 3,000 for a couple. So often there are families who have a child who meets the medical criteria, but if the parent's income or assets are over the allowable, the child cannot get SSI.
I think it's important to note here, I was talking about SSDI, and now we've shifted to SSI, which is entirely different. So if I just want to make sure, if these SSI criteria apply to SSI only, and they don't apply to SSDI.
Okay, so SSI for an adult, the adult's income and assets are going to be considered. And if the adult is married, the adult spouse, their income and assets are going to be considered. In addition, Social Security has a rule called holding yourself out as married. And so if the patient is holding themselves out as married, they've had a ceremony, or they're telling you the person is their spouse, Social Security will consider that person married. So that's really important. Okay, so the adult criteria is going for SSDI or SSI is the same. The medical criteria is the same, but the income, asset, and work criteria is different.
Okay, so SSI has 2 criteria. low household income and assets, and meeting the medical criteria. If you meet those two criteria, there is a benefit. The benefit is a monthly cash benefit and health insurance or a health benefit. So the SSI benefit is the maximum federal benefit is $943 a month this year. It may be adjusted with the cost of living index each year. But now the federal amount may be reduced because it's reduced by incidental income, both earned and unearned, and it'll reduce the benefit. In some states, notably California, there's a state supplement. So individuals receiving the federal SSI benefit in a state that has a state supplement will receive more than the 943 because they're receiving a federal benefit plus the state supplement. Now, the other thing that in addition to the monthly income support, SSI beneficiaries are eligible to enroll in the state Medicaid program. Now, I just want you to understand that this enrollment in Medicaid, this is a different pathway than straight Medicaid or enrolling directly into the program. This is an entitlement to enroll in the state program through a federal determination that the person is eligible for SSI. And as I mentioned with SSDI, there was quite a long waiting period. There's not a particularly long waiting period here. The benefits are available to the individual the month following a favorable determination. And the last benefit, so we looked at SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. We've looked at SSI, Supplemental Security Income. And now this is the third disability benefit called survivor benefit eligibility. To qualify for a survivor's benefit, so it's for dependent survivors of a worker who has died. So a worker who has paid into the system and they died before retirement age, there's a survivor benefit. So the parent, the decedent, must have worked and have a sufficient number of work credits to be an insured person in the Social Security system. And after they die, they leave a survivor, so like a child. So the child, and this includes a child who's over the age of 18. Here, child means the relationship to the decedent, not a particular number of years. So the child, including an adult child, must be the natural born or adopted child of the deceased, disabled, or retired worker. And Social Security must have found that child to be disabled before the child attains the age of 22. So if the child is, 30 years old when the parents died, and there has not been a determination by Social Security that the child is disabled, there's not going to be a survivor benefit available. One important thing is that the person receiving the survivor benefit must not be married. And this is an important and often overlooked detail. The idea here from Social Security is if the survivor is dependent on the decedent, and therefore when the decedent dies, the survivor should get a benefit because they're dependent. If that survivor marries someone else or becomes married, they become a dependent of their spouse. So then so if they haven't received the benefit yet, they're not eligible to receive it. If they are receiving it and get married, the eligibility ends.
And here's a very important thing about the survivor benefit. The way it used to work is that Social Security would just switch the person to the survivor benefit, but based on fairly new regulations about a year or two ago, when the person becomes eligible for the survivor benefit, Social Security does a medical review. Some people with CF think if they don't do a great job on the medical review, they'll still keep their underlying benefit, but that's not true. So when they do the medical review and they find the person is no longer eligible, the person can't get any Social Security benefits. So when the person has a parent that has just passed away or is getting Social Security disability or just retired, meaning they're getting Social Security retirement, that's a person who should definitely contact the CF Social Security Project, because it's a high stakes medical review. If they don't meet the criteria or Social Security thinks they gave one answer that allows them to say they're not disabled, they not only don't get the survivor benefit, but they also lose their underlying benefit.
Yeah, see, because the beneficiary is thinking, oh, Social Security is doing a medical review for the purpose of the survivor benefit. And that will not apply to my SSI or SSDI. That's the mistake. Because when Social Security does a redetermination of eligibility based on medical, that finding, if it's adverse, can be applied to any benefit program, not just the survivor. And so if they are currently receiving SSI or currently receiving SSDI, and Social Security has determined they're no longer disabled, that affects their eligibility for all other benefits.
The other thing, we have a lot of people saying, well, I don't want that benefit. I want to keep Medicaid and the benefit I have. So you can't decide you don't want a certain benefit. If you're eligible for the survivor benefit and you're found to still be disabled, you can't say you don't want that benefit. Okay.
Yeah, now we have mentioned that there are a set of medical eligibility requirements for SSDI, SSI, and the survivor benefit. They all use the same medical criteria, and that medical criteria can be found at Social Security's website. And in the days when we started practicing, it was actually on paper in a book that had a blue cover. So it's often referred to the blue book, although you'd be hard pressed to be finding any book at all, let alone a book with a blue cover. But it's still called the Blue Book. The reason we're not going over all of the details is because we could spend many hours talking about those. But keep in mind that a person to be eligible has to be found to be disabled under the rules. The rules are listed in the Social Security's website. And other thing to remember here is that if you meet the listing or meet the criteria, that raises the presumption that the person is incapable of work. But that presumption can be rebutted by other evidence. For example, someone meets the listing, but they're actually working. Well, they meet the listing and that raises the presumption they can't work. But the fact that they're working rebuts the presumption, because the best evidence that they can work is the fact that they are working.
And as Jim said before, just because you meet one of the listed criteria, there's not automatic approval. So we do hear that a lot from people, that their PFT is 40 and they meet the listing for PFT, so they don't know why they would need our help, because they're just going to get approved automatically. And that is not how it is working. Even if you have a low PFT, you still have to show substantial daily limitations. And that is the part of the proof that is very hard for people to show on their own. So most of our cases now actually are not people who meet the listing. They are usually people who are as severe as the medical criteria. So for example, the Social Security CF listing only deals with pulmonary issues, except for one criteria, which deals with a G-tube. And that is where you have to have a G-tube and one of 4 things on a list. And again, that does not make you automatically eligible, but it shows you meet the listing, and then you show that you're limited during the day. But most of our clients right now are as severe as cases, which means they don't meet the medical criteria, but they have a lot of daily limitations caused by CF. And an example would be lots of breathing treatments, or lots of time managing diabetes, lots of highs and lows that result in the person having blurry vision or shaky hands for hours or needing to rest. A lot of our clients now have severe GI trouble. So they go to the bathroom a lot, or they're in the bathroom for a long time, or they have very bad stomach trouble, or they need to be near a bathroom for many hours during the day. We have a lot of people that have that sort of profile of their daily activities. And that's someone who we can help with a case. That's an as severe as case. People who have a lot of interrupted sleep, maybe because of a medication side effect. And so during the day, they're exhausted and have to sleep during the day. In addition, if someone is not disabled because of CF, but has another condition, we can also help those people. So for example, we have quite a few people that now have cancer, and CF is not the reason they can't work, but the cancer is. We can help those people as well.
They have to have CF.
Right. They have to have CF in order to get our help, but they don't have to have CF as the reason they can't work. They can have another condition.
And many of the people we help are post-transplant. And so the type of symptoms that they are experiencing are not the classic pulmonary symptoms, because their pulmonary condition has been improved by the transplant. Yet, if they're taking a tacrolitis or Prograf, and they have side effects from that medication, those side effects may be the reason they can't work. And that would be an example of as severe as. They don't meet the listing because they don't have the pulmonary symptoms in the listing, but they do have symptoms that are severe, and they are as severe as those symptoms in the listing.
Right. And very important that there's not a transplant listing. So people who've been transplanted, Social Security considers their medical condition to be cystic fibrosis. All right. So
yeah, and just to put a finer point on that is that the Social Security regards organ transplant not as a disabling condition, but as a treatment for a disabling condition. So you would look to the underlying condition that caused the need for the transplant, in this example, CF. And so then the post-transplant care or the limitations imposed by the transplant would be a CF listing. And there, again, it would be as severe as, and we can help them.
All right. So we're going to wrap it up in a few minutes. I know you guys have a lot of things to do, but medical records are very important and essential to the success of an application for benefits. You'll see that if someone contacts us and we say we can help them, they'll usually have a medical record email from us. And we only need the last 12 months of clinic visit notes, hospital discharge summaries, and PFTs. And recently, based on new federal law about access to medical records, we are asking the patient to request those records and then send them to us. And then, of course, any help you can give the patients is appreciated. So, and if you have any questions about medical records or anything, let us know. If someone tells you, oh, they said they can't help me, and you want to know more information, we're happy to, have the patient say we can explain it to you, of course. So Social Security bases their determinations on evidence. So just the patient saying they have interrupted sleep 4 times a night is not enough. There needs to be something in the clinic visit note that is talking about the interrupted sleep. So we really work with our clients to make sure that when they're going to a clinic visit, they have a list of their daily limitations, and they are going to tell you what they are. And then they are going to ask you to make sure they are either typed into the record or written into the record. And so that's a very strong piece of evidence when things are noted in the clinic visits.
Yes, because the thing is that when Social Security is reviewing someone's case, they don't put a lot of weight in what the patient says or even what we might say, but they put all the weight on what's in the medical records. So if a patient does not report symptoms that they are experiencing to you, they don't get in the record. So Social Security doesn't even know they exist. If the patient reports those symptoms, but they're not recorded into the medical record, well, even still, Social Security doesn't know they exist. And if they're not incorporated into the record correctly and accurately, well, then Social Security is not going to be making a decision on true, correct, and accurate information. So medical records are very important because it is the thing that Social Security puts weight on.
All right.
Now, yeah, I just want to put a finer point on something that I mentioned before. Early, I said things are even more difficult for patients who live in a state that has not expanded Medicaid. So for those who are unfamiliar with this concept, is that the Affordable Care Act, which was adopted by Congress back in 2010, provided that for low-income adults, so that's people making less than 138% of the federal poverty level. So for low-income adults, that the state Medicaids needed to expand their Medicaid to provide coverage to that group of the population, low-income adults. Well, it was mandated in the statute, but the Supreme Court said, no, it can't be mandatory. It's only optional. So 40 states and the District of Columbia, those that you can see here on the map, have expanded their Medicaid. 10 states have not. So what does that mean for your patients? It means that if they are an adult and low income and they haven't been approved for SSI, they cannot simply enroll in Medicaid in a non-expansion state. If they are in an expansion state, they can, as a low-income adult, enroll in Medicaid and receive health benefit coverage there. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. If someone enrolls in is not enrolled in SSI and they lose their parents' coverage, or they were enrolled in SSI as a child and they get to an 18-year-old review and they are terminated from SSI, if they're in a non-expansion state, there may be no health benefit option available to them. So this emphasizes the need for people who are getting that 18-year-old review to have assistance so that Medicaid can continue into adulthood, or for those people who maybe are an adult and don't have employment options, and they haven't applied for, or they're not receiving SSI. We want to get them SSI so they can get Medicaid, because without SSI, it's not going to be available in a non-expansion state.
And so we have a lot of callers, especially in the past 3 to 6 months, family members, parents, who say, we had no idea they were going to lose their Medicaid, their state childhood Medicaid, at 18 or 19. There's a few states that continue that till 21. So I do think it's important to let the families know, if you're a pediatric center, or if you have adults that are 18, 19, 20, 21, make sure they know that having childhood Medicaid, it's going to stop. And if you're in a non-expansion state, the only way to get Medicaid is going to be SSI. And we're happy to help those people with an application, but it is usually taking 8 to 12 months to get a decision. So we have quite a few people that have no coverage because they didn't know earlier that they needed to try to see if they could apply for SSI. So at 18, if they're in a non-expansion state, we should assess whether we could help them with SSI so that we could get them the SSI before they lose their childhood Medicaid.
And I just put the map up there once more so that you can look at it. And if you're sitting in one of those orange states, your patients have to have extra attention.
And you probably obviously all already know that, but if you're maybe go back and we can read them out. If you are in Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, Kansas, Wyoming, or Wisconsin. So in the other states, if the child loses childhood Medicaid and is low income, then the child could get Medicaid as a low-income adult.
Care Act. Well, the problem is that to enroll in an Affordable Care Act plan in the marketplace, you have to have a certain amount of income. It's like $1,700 and some odd dollars every month. And if you are below that in income, you're excluded from enrolling in a marketplace Affordable Care Act plan.
Now, of course, the third thing the person, if they're able to work, is they could find an employer that offers health insurance. Most employers, sort of like if you're at a big box store or grocery, they often have a waiting period. And that is a good option as well. So just we're going to wrap it up and just remind you, of course, you guys, the members of the CF team, all of you, but especially social workers, you all sort of really determine the outcome for a lot of the patients by helping them in many, many ways. And of course, I know we are so thankful for all the things that you do, that the whole team does for people with CF. So telling them the information about being aware that a continuing disability review or an 18-year-old review is very important, just making it a practice to tell them that and remind them at every visit. We do have centers that have been doing that for the past 6 months, and it really, really helps so that they can get to us and we can help them. We have very, very good outcomes when people come to us before they've lost the benefit. You can still send people to us after they've lost the benefit, but it is a much longer process, and it's much harder to get people back on.
And of course, through the generosity of the CF Foundation, we're able to provide both the hotline and the CF Social Security Project services absolutely free of charge. We never look to them for anything, and we're very grateful to the foundation for their foresight and their generosity.
So we thank CF Roundtable for sponsoring this webcast. I do write a column in every magazine publication of CF Roundtable about like hot topic legal issues. So be sure to subscribe, and you can tell your patients about it as well. It's also online, so you can either get a physical copy or you can read articles online as well. And
we just like to say thanks again to not just the social workers, but to every member of the CF staff, because we receive calls from all over the country, and there's one thing that's constant. Every patient expresses enormous gratitude for the work that the CF social workers and the CF care teams provide to them, because if they don't say it to you, they do say to us that you have improved their lives in so many ways. And so we thank all of you for your work. And if your patients or you or the physician in your center needs to contact us, they can reach us by this number on the screen now, or by email.
And email is the best way, because when people leave a message, there's a lot of phone tag, and we do spend our funding on, we don't have a live receptionist. I think that's important to know. So email's a really good way to get us, and then we schedule a call with the person. And if you have questions, we can schedule a call with you. And also, you can schedule a call while you're on the phone with the patient or the family member. That is great too. So thank you all. We hope you have a great holiday, and we appreciate you attending. If you have questions, please email. We'll be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, email us. And I will also point out that the CF Roundtable has asked us to do a series of these presentations. So keep your eyes peeled, because there will probably be announcements soon for one or two other webinars on a similar topic. Thank you, everyone.